Okay.
Winter, spring, summer, fall, seasons change, we still keep it together.
Hey, Beverly Hills 90210 fans! Are you ready to dive deep, episode by episode, storyline by storyline, character by character, as we break down the making of your favorite zip code? With your hosts, Charles Rosen.
Did I say that?
Yeah.
Harry
This
Mullen.
heinous thing about the real person, and we go, what? We're getting rid of this guy.
Pete Ferrero.
I'm feeling wonderful. Kathleen looks TV crush-worthy.
Like so many special guests. And all your questions. Live on the Beverly Hills 90210 show. Oh, yeah.
Everybody dance now.
Well, here we are on the Beverly Hills 90210 show. It's me and one of the other survivors of the last couple of years, Larry Mullen. Chuck and I were last week when we were joking about we're still here, we're still doing it, we're still sharing these awesome stories. You were on the East Coast, though. Wow.
Yes, I am on the East Coast.
How was your trip? We always love hearing about your trip to the East.
Oh, well, the trip is, it's arduous. It's a red-eye flight to Boston from L.A., and then we did have a car pick us up and take us to Portsmouth, Rhode Island, on the island of Aquidneck, where I had shipped a car for the summer. A friend of mine has a farm there, so I picked that up, and then the next day we kind of we know we're going to be going to a ferry, and you never want to have an empty car going across on a ferry because it's so expensive. So we loaded up with, like 15 like Bounty towels and toilet paper and everything on this island that we live on. Martha's Vineyard is so expensive. And then we finally got over. So, it took about 28 hours to get here. But it's always good. It's always adventurous. And
I do know that one thing people really like to hear about is you starting your car. And
yeah, I have to say, I have a car here. I leave it in August and I come back in late April. And in between, I take off the negative cable of the battery. Just take it off. I just unscrew it, put it aside. I come back 6 months later. I put the negative cable back. I turn the key. It starts right up.
Oh, it's amazing.
It's amazing. It's a miracle.
Yeah. So all is good. Now we're looking at the episode Fortunate Son today.
Yes.
And it's interesting because there's so many different things happening. We have Brandon returning to gambling. We have this woman who, and once we get our buddy Shari Weiss on, she'll say exactly the woman's name. But we have this woman who Steve is working for. And you said this scenario happened to you, so I'm excited to hear about that. Yeah.
Well, I mean, the whole thing, we should just set up. This was an episode that aired December 13th. So it was after Sweeps episodes. So we've already had, and also after the departure of Dylan McKay also. This is post. So, and this is an episode almost like there's a lot of standalone elements in this episode because we really weren't gearing up the next big thing, which is going to be Kelly's cocaine addiction for another episode or two to the Christmas show, I think. But the other thing is, this is an episode directed, I want to give the credits here, James Fargo. And if you look at the writer credits on it, it's massive. We never have credits like this, but it's like
Larry, everybody that was with the staff has got a writing credit.
It's like Lana Freeman, Freestead Melman, Welpley, Eisendrath, and then Jessica Stephen I's story. So yeah, so this was an episode.
What happened? We're not used to seeing this.
Jessica Steve and I had the story, had a story, and then we farmed it out to one of our freelancers, Lana Melman, who had done great work for us and probably did good work in us. But the stories were changing so quickly. By the time she handed the script in, it didn't apply anymore. Parts of the ones did, but we had to adjust because we knew we had changed. It's a fluid thing. That's what was so difficult about telling 32 hours a season was you had to keep the circle small so everyone knew what was going on. Information was really key. And so we always had small staffs. And so that information obviously didn't get out to Lana. And now we've got pre-production starting and we're probably in double ups, maybe the last double ups before Christmas. So it's really imperative that we get pages in. And I think we just put everyone in, we locked the door and we wrote the script and handed it in. And I never wanted to see it again, frankly, until 23 years later, I saw it this week and it was terrific. I had no idea because I just remember how painful it was and how ornery everyone was and cranky. And you got to keep going. You got to finish these things, and you got to deliver pages so people can board the stuff and do what has to be done in the double up situation. And it was a real pleasure to watch it.
Let me bring in our buddy Shari Weiss here. Okay, it's been a minute since she's been with us.
Professor Shari Weiss.
That's right.
Of teen dramology. She's very esteemed, probably the most knowledgeable person in the field, arguably. So good to see you, Shari.
Very kind of you to say.
It's true. It's easy.
It's been a minute.
We're seeing your shining face. You look great. You're still in Wilmington?
Thank you. Yes, I am. Yeah.
Good. Well, I hope you run into my friend Sydney Penny.
One of these days.
Go to Java's Jester's
Cafe.
Yeah, Jester's Cafe. Yeah,
well, now you just revealed all that, so now anyone who wants to meet Sydney Penny will know where to go.
Exactly. Sydney, her and her husband Rob, they run that cafe, and I love that cafe.
Oh, amazing!
You need to come down and visit us.
Yeah, I mean, it's all, we love doing our road trips. It's just a question of having the time, but maybe, can't count it out. We haven't made plans yet to go back.
I will be in New York next week. I want to try to get up to see. I do want to try to make that happen. So, hey Shari, it's good to see you. It's been a minute since you've last been here. How is everything with you? Are you all good in the world of the teen drama horror stuff?
Yes, teen drama horror is going strong for well over 10 years now. My newsletter has a Tuesday edition where I'm rounding up the news and the links of everything that's happened related to the teen dramas over the last week. And so I cover Beverly Hills 90210, Dawson's Creek, The OC, One Tree Hill, the original Gossip Girl, the Gossip Girl spinoff, as well as the 90210 spinoff referring to the CW version. So if you're interested in any of those shows, and
I know you're a big fan of. I know you're a big fan of that version.
And like I said, she is the professor because you're talking about detailed analysis.
Yes.
I mean, if there could be analytics in the teen drama world, she's got the analytics on this.
It's serious shit.
I would definitely recommend that if you really want to dive deep into that world. Shari, did you see this episode, Fortunate Son? Have you seen this episode?
Is that a rhetorical question? Yes, obviously I've seen it many times, but I did just rewatch it last night.
Good.
Shari, I mean, Larry just went through this process of all the writers that were in this. This was a lot of writers that were working on this. Other places may have just said Darren Star. So it just
that is true. That is true. And I can tell you the reason that happens. If you go onto IMDb's main page for a given episode, it says writers Darren Star, and it might say another name after that. If you click into the full cast and crew, in the writers section, it shows Darren Star, creator in parentheses,
right,
and then the writers of the episode.
Yeah.
But people who don't do their homework, giving them the wrong attribution.
I love that.
But I did notice, as you guys said, how many names were on this episode, both as the teleplay credit and as the writing credit. And then I was even more surprised to see that Lana didn't work on any other series. This was her only show she ever did in her career.
Oh, no. Oh, on the Beverly Hills 90210.
Yes.
Well, again, she was a FOC.
Friend of Chuck.
Yes. Jeff Melvin, her husband, is a very esteemed director in Hollywood and directed.
Amazing.
He directed some episodes of us. He's also a fine polo player. But, like I said, I say no more. She was FOC, and so she did write on episodes. But yes.
We got to get Jeff. Jeff Melman directed some really incredible 90210 episodes. So, Jeff, if Jeff you're somehow listening to this, come to the dark side. All these people have to come to the dark side, which is the Beverly Hills 90210 show.
Colin, the dark side.
Oh, by the way, yes, we do have news. It isn't dark. It's the light side. But we actually have communicated with Jason Wiles, and he's promised us to come on.
So it's coming close.
The character of Colin Robbins, who's in this episode, which we'll discuss when we get to it. But anyway,
there's something in the air, Larry, because even someone from season 8 just recently said to me, "I'm so sorry. I would love to come on and do this podcast." So it's something is changing in the air where they're just going to start. Now, maybe Dina Meyer will just show up out of the blue.
It's archival.
Let's not get carried away.
Yeah, that's okay. Yeah. There's a bunch of haters still.
Yes,
I won't name them yet.
Well, but let's go back to this thing about all these writers, Larry. I have to ask you. This is not typical though of a situation in the writers' room where there's so many people writing and it's a late night writing session and all of this stuff. what's going on? I mean, what was the main story that was creating so much trouble in the ones that we saw in this episode?
It wasn't the main story. It wasn't the story. We're going to see Drancy in a second, who plays Isaiah. That story was a standalone. It was the other ones which had to be adapted because we had changed different things. And I think I literally don't think we even had the Brandon story at that point, the Brandon Nat story. I think we had just, we had just taken our eye off the ball maybe. And so there were some other things that just had to be done. I don't think there's another 90210 episode that has this kind of a conglomeration of writing credits. But I mean, sometimes it happens in comedies all the time because it's more of a table writing situation.
Sure.
For drama, it's very rare, and also rare for the Writers Guild of America West to grant us permission to do that, because sometimes they'll just say, no, that's too many writers, you can't have it. But in this circumstance, we must have asked for it, and we won the appeal or whatever. So everyone kind of got covered for their hard work, and we needed everybody.
Clearly, yes. I mean, one of the things that you guys do in this is, we're just talking about the Brandon thing. You throw back to Brandon's gambling stuff. But this is great the way this is done, because he's, you change the Peach Pit After Dark into this casino for charity. It's a charitable.
We have one event which then all the other stories come off of. It's in a way, even though it was created such a hodgepodge, it actually shows the goodness of what we could do. You take one event and have all the stories come off it. So we had, the sororities doing a charity, and so everyone's showing up there. So now there's going to be casino night. So then that leads to Brandon's gambling addiction, and Donna's got to be late, and then you have the bidding for the sitting for a portrait of Colin Robbins, he's going to paint your portrait between Valerie and Kelly Taylor. Is a wonderful bit there, and we play that through, I think. So it becomes a major story point for us. Again, we laid some seeds there which are going to be helpful later when you're really trying to find story for you when you're doing 32 hours a year. When you're doing the Brandon stuff, there comes the conversation, I'm sure, of, well, we have to show Duke. We need people to know what we're even talking about. So now we have to go back to Duke's Bad Boy,
and we have to get clearance from Duke that this is okay, right? Isn't that how that works?
No, he just gets paid. He doesn't get. We don't have to ask.
There's a credit for him in the opening credits.
Yeah, he gets within his thing. He gets. Maybe they did have to ask, and he said we wanted a credit, so there's a credit up front for him for Billy Vera, and he gets a clip, what we call a clip fee, which we all love.
Well, I'm sure he loved it, because out of something he did all these years ago, he's just coming back.
It's always a gift. The scholarship.
But it's great stuff, and we get to see Nat in this familiar, this fatherly sort of role, because we don't have parents on the show anymore at this point, right?
No, in fact, we keep them alive here by saying they're not coming back from Christmas, and then the unreliable narrators that we bring Sydney back. I think this season, does she come back?
Yeah, the very next episode, Angels Leave Heard on High.
Yeah, so that's kind of what we would always do. It's we love the unreliable narrator.
Shari, what do you think of going back to Brandon's gambling addiction? I think Jason's really even almost better at being addicted to gambling in this episode than he is in the one from season 3. What do you think of it?
Well, of course, he's had several more years of acting experience. He started directing by this point, so he's just in a different place in his career. I love storylines that call back to years prior. I thought it was a great use of a flashback. My gripe would be that there's a continuity error. In the episode, it said more than once that he was betting on football when the actual season 3 storyline revolved around betting on basketball. But
all these writers in the room. All these writers in the room.
I relied on Steve and Jessica for that knowledge, and they did not deliver.
7 writers get credited on this.
Only you were able to Google back in 1995.
You all missed it.
Arduous process to research in those days.
I know.
You all missed it.
You should have had some lowly intern rewatch the episode for you, but no. So there's that. I think it's interesting.
Yeah, that makes me even clearer that it was a late pick for that episode.
Yeah,
and then we
and
kind
it's
of
a
just
bottle
went realized we could have
storyline.
Nat and stuff. So I don't think we were not ready for that one.
It's rare that we see Brandon being an asshole, and
Yes.
Jason does it really well. It's rare that we see Brandon and Nat having an adversarial relationship or moments. I think you could have revisited it if you wanted to, because in that final scene between Susan and Brandon, and I have to say, I love Susan's dorm room. I wish mine was that big. But, they say, she's going to help him through this with his addiction, and then it doesn't come back. ironically, the addiction we ended up seeing explored during the season is Kelly's.
Kelly's addiction.
That coming right up. Yeah. That's interesting. God, we should have had you on staff, I think, just to help us.
It's not too
just
late.
at least, just her and Darren Martin, just at least to remember. But in season 3, it was actually basketball, right?
You know, we worried about
this
things,
is bothering
I'm
you.
pretty
Larry.
certain that somehow that whole Brandon storyline came late. I mean, it's like, oh my God, we could do this thing because we needed pages. We were short. I think we must have had to cut something right away. There was another storyline there we cut. That's
I wonder what that would be. Is. Yeah. Well, I mean, but he's great at this, and he gets into it with Nat, and I love seeing him. I love seeing Brandon have a problem. You know what I mean? Like, I love to see it being his own problem. And we just were watching it. He was snippy with Susan Keats. It's
oh yeah, no, it's really under his skin, and it's how it really is sometimes when you have a compulsion like that. And then the director James Fargo did a really good job. You know,
you said you knew James Fargo.
James, I know because we both work with the same orangutans. He did Every Which Way But Loose.
Sorry? What?
Yeah, you know, I had a career punching up an orangutan act. Bobby Veracini's orangutans, which were Vegas headliners. I would go a couple of times a year and punch up their act. But they also starred in Every Which Way But Loose and Any Which Way You Can. That was Poppy, one of my stars that I would write for. Each monkey had a different bit. Okay, some would go like this, some could goose shoe. Some there were, it was interesting. They were lifelong friends.
All right, I'm gonna hit a
check
real
out
quick.
Monkey Mansion. Check out Monkey Mansion on YouTube.
Okay, Monkey Mansion on YouTube.
Yeah.
I'm gonna hit
an Vegas show at the Stardust and the.
I'm going to hit an old ad here. When we come back, we're going to bring a guest on, and we're going to dive into the main story here, which is of this episode, which is Donna and Joe going. Well, we'll talk. Yes, exactly.
Well. When was the last time you checked out the Beverly Hills 90210 show shop? Because now it's loaded with so much more stuff. Did you ever want to join the gang at CU? Because now you can wear your official CU t-shirt. Or want to get into the fun with America's zip code? Represent with this cool swag. Or maybe you have an invite to the Peach Pit after dark and need the coolest shirt ever. We have loaded the store with so much more. So don't be a squeeze. Head over to Beverly Hills 90210showshop.com for all the latest goods.
It is definitely time for some new merch in there. I'm wearing today. Hey, Drancy, I'm wearing today this old CU shirt. I don't know.
I've got the high school version.
Nice.
Yeah, I've got my Roy Randolph Royal School of Acting.
I've got the Top Ramen shirt on. Everybody knows ramen, right?
I do, Raymond, very much.
All right, so good, man. Joining us here is Isaiah from the episode, Drancy Jackson. How are you, man? It's good to see you. How has it been?
I'm fine, man. I'm fine. Thanks for having me on the show. First off, I really appreciate it. It's been over 23 years, so it's been a long time.
Yeah.
But it's been amazing. I kind of remember it like it was yesterday. The experience was amazing. Everything, the love I felt from everybody on the cast and on the set was amazing. I have a couple of stories that happened. Aaron Spelling was amazing. The whole, just the whole experience of being on Beverly Hills 90210 was amazing.
Did you have to go through a audition process? Would you have? What was that like for you? Walk me.
Well, how old were you at the time?
I was 16 or 17.
Okay.
And now
you were playing younger.
Playing 11 years
old.
Really,
really young.
Yeah, as an actor, I did that too, so I totally appreciate that.
Well, look at Andrea Zuckerman. She was playing younger.
That's pretty good, though. She was 17 and playing 11. Yeah, baby.
Yeah, that's crazy. So, I'm 40. So, so when I auditioned for it, we went to Aaron Spelling's office, and what stood out to me, I don't know if you remember, because you have to remember, I think it was a 24-karat pinball machine. Do you remember that pinball machine?
With all his hits on it. Yeah, I'm sure I was in the room when you read. Yeah.
Yes, that stood out. The carpet, but I auditioned in front of Aaron Spelling. Got the role. Like I said, everybody was great, man. Tori was great. Everybody at work was great. Brian Austin Green was great. I remember playing with him. We were playing a drifter game because all the power on the side of our dressing rooms were out. So Luke Perry's power was out. I think Chief Amber Thiesen's power was out. Mine and I remember my grandmother at the time, rest in peace. Her and Tori loved Days of Our Lives. So she let my grandmother watch Days of Our Lives in her dressing room. So it was a great experience. I love it. Yes.
Oh, so your grandmother was the one who took you down there. She was.
Yes.
Yeah, that's
I still
great.
was a minor. Yeah.
So you're doing this show. You're showing up to 90210. I mean, were you aware of it? Like, were you aware of what 90210 was? Like that?
Yeah. And I didn't watch it all the time, but yeah, of course I was aware of it. It was a pretty popular TV series. But yes, I was pretty aware of it. And when I got the part, and I was actually given the opportunity to be on the show, mix that around. When I was given the opportunity to be on the show, and I got the part, I was amazed. I was amazing because I actually am familiar with the show.
You knew who everybody was, and where was and you said everybody was pretty welcoming right from the start.
From the start, we had no issues. I was the only kid on the set that day, I think. And
what was the first scene you did? What was the first scene you shot there? Do you remember? Was it the store?
I think it was the liquor store. I think the first thing we did, we filmed on location, and I think we were in the liquor store. Yeah.
Your real life age is really interesting because if you were 16, 17 when you appeared, that's the same age that Tori and Brian were when the show started.
Theoretically,
so you were just right after them, and they were just seeing the young actor that they once were a few years earlier.
Exactly. And I knew the show was extremely popular, but even to this day, not a lot, but not a lot now, but people are like, hey, you look familiar. Were you on 90210? And I'm like, yes, I was. So it's been amazing. And I still get residual checks, so hey, I can't complain.
I know, it's a wonderful thing. Ian Ziering says it's the gift that keeps on giving.
Yes.
Larry, what about putting this particular story together? Why don't you talk to us a little bit about it?
It was coming out of the Donna Martin's relationship with the other woman on the court. And there was one of
the courting, the Rose.
The character name, the actress name, Tembi Locke, was a wonderful.
The character is Lisa.
She played Lisa, yeah. And we knew she was really talented when we cast her. And she's had a really big, long career, which I'm not surprised at all. And, we have a relationship. So we knew, again, we're always looking for where we can find story. And we thought we really had to, and again, the show is Beverly Hills. I mean, everything we do is Beverly Hills. And so you want to challenge that sometimes. And one way is, dealing with LA stories. And this is coming off of a lot of movies that, that were popular, Boys in the Hood and some of the other ones. It just, we felt we had to be honest and tell stories. Like, what would it be like if Donna was down there? Could she handle it? And could we bring some positive message? And that's what in seeing how it played out. So I think, and also this follows the tradition which Chuck Rosen, probably never seen the episode, always set up. He always had a mix of social stories, social issue stories. And that's what set the series apart. It wasn't just kissing, even though we depended on kissing. And there was kissing in this episode, I'm sure. But we wanted to be able to tell honest stories. We wanted to be authentic about Los Angeles. And it is. I mean, and I think, looking at it today, 23 years later, like I said, I hadn't seen this thing. I felt it kind of rang true, and I really was happy the way it ended, the way we resolved it, because I did not remember it all. But I just thought it was kind of good. It was before people talked about pay it forward, but there it was. There was pay it forward.
Yeah, and I actually agree. Like I said, I really appreciate being in that episode also because it is a real life issue, and it is facts and things like that do go on, not only in our community, but in everybody's community. So it brought light, like you said, 23 years ago, to something that is still going on today. So it had a significant meaning, being a part of that because that's real and that's what happens. And, that was just something that was addressed that people can relate to.
Can I play devil's advocate for a second?
Oh, yes, I'm sure you will.
Larry, what would you say if someone said this storyline was just, enhancing the white savior trope? Here it comes.
Well, but these are our lead characters, I would say. But like I said, I thought it was interesting, especially there was a scene that was in the parking lot of the Peach Pit where they're coming back after the experience with Issaih and his family, and they're going, "Oh, look, BMW," and just realize we have a really what are you going to do? I mean, you can't. I don't know. I just thought that was honest of it, and I thought all we can hope is for kindness from people and people to understand people and walk a second in their shoes. And I kind of thought we did that. Yes, you're absolutely right. It's the white savior, that thing. But anything can be criticized. But we try. Again, we put ourselves out there, and I think that the heart's in the right place in this story. And I basically, because I think Drancy did a wonderful job as Isaiah, playing this kid who's basically
Thank you.
11-year-old kid who's father to these kids, and he was so mature and so impressive that anyone in that situation would want to help him. But the original moment of it, where he's shoplifting because he wants to have a birthday present for
My little
his
sister.
brother, and he doesn't want to pay the $5, and Donna, covers for him. That's a cool moment. And then Donna walking through the neighborhood and the local gangsters giving them some grief there, and him bailing her out. I just thought, I don't know. I was very happy with the way it went, and life should be like that we can build bonds that way through helping each other.
Exactly.
So
I remember that day too. When
Yeah,
they
yeah,
walked
we had
through the hood. Yeah.
Yeah,
And I was like,
yeah,
hey,
we had
Donna,
the local.
Joe, where you guys been at? And they were like, oh yeah. So yeah.
It was very sweet because you just jumped right in the moment, and I was proud of our show for it because look, we could not deny it. I mean, if anything, we were a white show. We had no white diverse character in the main cast other than until Jesse came in for 1 year. Just. But at the same time, we always had rich, guest stars. We certainly had Chris Williams.
Sure.
We love Chris and all the other, other folks who really, added.
See, that's
to the
why
show.
I want to say that because Beverly Hills 90210, I was treated with the utmost respect. I didn't even see 90210. I just seen my fellow actors and actresses, and it was all love. That's how I felt, and it's been like that. And I've said that before in certain Instagram posts. People are like, well, how was it working on Beverly Hills 90210? I'm like, it was excellent. It was great. It was work, and Tori was super cool. So
yeah, I want to hear about the Tori thing because you have some really good scenes with her.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you about doing scenes with Tori and doing some of that stuff with her and Cameron Bancroft, who was Joe Bradley in this episode.
Yeah, they were actually, like I said, they were, especially Tori. She was super cool. We really had that chemistry on and off camera as far as acting wise. That's why it came off, kind of really, really good on film. Super down to earth. When I say down to earth, like I can't really put, any more emphasis on down to earth and super humble. And so it was really easy for me to, act with her and communicate. And it's just easy to get through it because of the type of, woman and type of actress and type of person she is. And like I said, everybody, not only Tori, but everybody was so welcoming. And we were in the hood too. And like I said, it was just, you couldn't even tell. Everything was good. And I would never ever forget that experience ever.
Where was the locations for some of this? Do you know, Shari?
I don't know, but there was a lot of B-roll, that was used to set the scene. And as they were driving Joe and Donna in the car, you have the vantage point of Donna looking out the car window and what she sees. And it's going to give you an impression of the neighborhood.
We tried to tell that story.
And the contrast with the...
And I forgot where we filmed the last scene where I guess my mom, the woman who played my mom, we came and it was a big hug and it was a big, thank you. I think I'm not sure if it was at a daycare, but I forgot. But I remember that too.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, you would have had to go to school. You would be going to school a couple of hours
going to school,
yeah, because we had the on-set teacher.
Yeah, and I guess the whole gist of the episode was about a single parent, single African American mom, leaving her her son at home watching the kids while she was working. So that happens, and like I said, it happened.
You were in school. Were you in school at the time of this episode airing? What were what were they saying to you after this episode of 90210 airs?
I was super popular after that. Everybody was like, 90210 this. I was like, yeah, I was on 90210, and it wasn't just one or two lines. It was a lot. So
you were in the main storyline of 90210. Yeah.
So that was crazy. I soaked it up like a sponge. So I loved it. And I was super popular. And then after that paved the way, for me to go and do other things, until life happened, and beautiful kids and everything. So but it was awesome.
Yeah, because did you have many credits before 90210? I should have checked it.
I had a couple of credits. I did a show called Mrs. Piggle Wiggle. I did a remake of a movie called Piranha. I think a Tiger Woods story. I played the Tiger. That was either before or after. But I had a couple of credits. I was still about 3-4 years into acting, but I started off running. Thank God. So I had a couple of things before then.
No, that's good.
And after. So.
And so what's going on with you today, man? What are you doing today?
Absolutely nothing as far as the acting, and I would love to get back into it. I'm just not 2 kids, I got a girlfriend, I got a household, but I think it's time. I think I feel as though I still have it. I don't look 40. I feel as though I still have it. So
I think you could play 25. I think.
Yeah.
I agree. You have a baby
you.
face
You
still.
you got that gift.
I'm still spinning after skills. So I'm just hey,
great.
I'm open for anything. If you guys have any ideas, if you guys want to get back together, I'm open for it. Let me know. I'll let you know my work schedule and we can work around it. So what's going on?
Larry, just write him a script.
There you go.
I've been out of the business since 2007. You know that, but
You never know, man. This could lead to something really great.
My health is good.
Yeah, really good.
At least my stress level is very good.
All right, we're going to say goodbye to Drancy, and then we're going to come back and talk about some of this other stuff that's going on in this episode. Thanks for being here, man. It was good to see you, bud.
With us.
Thank you guys for having me. I appreciate it.
And also, again, you did such a fabulous job in that show. It's such a revelation seeing it. And just seeing Donna Martin in this tough storyline, which I thought, Tori really acted beautifully, I thought, and again, really satisfying at the end.
Much gratitude to you, Drancy, for coming on here and telling us. And as Larry said, I mean, the work is phenomenal. Your acting work was incredible at that age, and I would love to see you in some more stuff. So let's get back out there, man.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for having me.
All right, good seeing you, man.
Bye.
All right, let's move on to talking about other things that are happening in this thing. The other thing that's going on is Steve. I mean, Larry, and I want to ask you this: is this kind of where you thought Steve, if you were to put him in a career post college, are you trying to lay this ground? Like he's working in a Hollywood office for this woman. Do you think that's where Steve, instead of running a newspaper,
seemed like a natural progression for Steve? It's a bullshit job. You basically earn 10% of other people. Basically, you do nothing yourself, but you get 10% of a lot of people.
Right.
Yeah, no, it seemed really real. There's something funny. I'm watching it. Probably, I don't know if Professor Weiss noticed it, but there's at one point there's a phone call, and when we first see Steve at the office at ITM,
Yes,
there's a phone call from Erwick.
Yes,
Jonathan
Of course, Erwick was our executive at Fox at the time, so that's kind of a little throw out to him.
I was going to ask you about that.
He's ahead of Hulu now, I think.
What I liked about the storyline was that it peeked behind the showbiz curtain of what we as everyday people normally don't get to see. Now Steve picked up that copy of Variety, which is another meta moment, because if there was news about Beverly Hills 90210, you're going to read it in Variety, and here we are.
Exactly, daily Variety was so important to us.
Yeah,
this is before the internet.
In a show where the stories had so many writers, how does this one come to the table? Do you have any thought on that?
Probably neither one of us just wrote it himself. I might have just written the thing. Again, it's like 4-beat story. It's a 4-beat story. Again, we need this Steve story. It's a 4-beat story. He's got to get a job, and again, it does give a peek behind the curtain a little bit, because there's a meanness to the business, and but there's an honesty to it too. I mean, I actually quite like this story in a way, It's set up well. Hey, read all my mail. Steve reads the mail. The girl's getting fired. He knows she's getting fired, and she's devastated. And she does what people do, when they're fired. You just try to find someone to help you find a way back in. Mm-hmm. And Steve tries, and and basically the guy says to the girl, "It's great." And we have a little #MeToo moment where the guy says, you sleeping with the girl, Steve? Like, he can't understand why Steve, the top agent,
he's going to bat for her. Yeah.
He's helping her. She wants to know if Steve's sleeping with her. And Steve goes, no. He said, well, me neither. Maybe that would have helped, which is pretty rough. But
then in the next episode, we find out that he does have a mistress.
Oh, the guy?
The story. Yeah. And the next
you're right. He gives the wrong Christmas present.
That's right. He does.
Oh, yeah. That's great. Yeah. He's a kind of this is what happened. This is a reflection of the business at the time.
Larry,
but anyway,
it's interesting.
He has to find a way to fire the girl. He has to find the right words, which I think is great.
I want to ask you, though, before we came on, you told me that this happened to you, and I know some of us love our wrestling when we get into a wrestling talk, but this happened to you. The very storyline happened to you almost.
The firing thing is, we've all been fired. It's a terrible feeling. But also, when people, okay, so my wrestling story was I get recruited out of Hollywood to go to work for the WWE, write for them. It's a big jump for me. All of a sudden, I'm going to leave television and join the circus, basically. But I'm from theater, so I thought this is going to be great. And the guy who hired me, I really like. He's another Hollywood guy, so we've all set the thing up. And so I arrive in Stamford, and I set my pencils up and get ready with all my stuff in my office, share my office with Brian Gerwitz and Lagan and all that, Michael Hayes, all the heavyweights. And I get called upstairs to the guy who hired me. He calls me and says, "Close the door." I said, "What's going on?" He says, "I was just fired."
Wow.
I went, "Oh God, this is not going to work out." This is terrible. This is the bad sign from the beginning.
Yeah.
But anyway, so this gal gets fired.
Did you live in Stamford when that happened? Were you living in
housing? Because we would. Don't forget, the schedule was we'd write from like Wednesday to Saturday, and then Sunday we'd fly out because Monday and Tuesday we had live shows, and then we'd fly back. Hopefully Tuesday night, but sometimes the fly home would be Wednesday. There'd be no day off, which I went, what? Wow. No turnaround? But yeah, that was they don't do that now.
No, but so I mean, and Claire gets involved only through this storyline. She has a very minimal thing that's happening.
Yeah, I'm not. Yeah, the Claire thing is not great, but she has a little bit of jealousy. It doesn't show her off very well in this episode. But Steve really does. I really like what Ian did with this stuff, because it's difficult to fire people and make them and not be a shithead about it. And he kind of colors it really well. Like he does. The guy challenges him. Yeah, it's up to you. If you want to survive in this business, you better learn how to fire people. And Steve does a good job with it. And Steve would have been a good agent. There's no doubt in my mind.
We've talked. I asked this, but we've talked about this before. Of like where you saw the characters going. To that point, do you think this is where you would have, if you had stayed in season 8 after graduation? Is this kind of what you would have had Steve doing? Do you think?
Well, I would have tried. Certainly, it was something. Like it would be something showbiz related with all his connections, his mother and his father. I mean, this is what we do in Hollywood. Nepotism.
And we see him being explored this agency life later on when he becomes the agent to the CU basketball player.
So that was where you guys wanted to go.
Again, we weren't thinking about it too much because there was just too much to think about on the plate. I never think that far ahead, but other than to the next sweeps round.
Shari, when you think about, and then you've talked to Larry for a long time, and Chuck, when you think about because you have obviously watched the seasons all the way through. Yes. In retrospect, I mean, in the time, I have no problem with the beat. I think the beat makes a lot of sense, but in retrospect, does that make sense to you that maybe Steve should have been more of an agent?
Yeah, I can see that. I understand, Larry's vision that these were extraordinary people and they should have had extraordinary careers, and they went on to have rather ordinary careers.
Yeah, that's always bothersome to me.
I don't know that it bothers me in the same way. I don't think it's necessarily unrealistic for people to have a privileged upbringing, and then when they're let loose, they're in for a rude awakening and find out the real world is a lot much harder to get by when mommy and daddy are no longer supporting you and things like that. But I can certainly see maybe today Steve is an agent somewhere.
And I think Brandon could definitely be a reporter. That's totally. He could have the paper for sure. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean?
And and when we left him, he was going on to the Washington Chronicle or the Washington Bureau of the New York Chronicle. So it was meant to be.
So he was going to run into Susan Keats there, probably.
Yeah. An esteemed career. He just started it with this startup paper.
Okay, we got to talk about the other thing.
When you're a Dryer fellow, you don't start a local newspaper. You don't start the penny saver.
Well,
it was the penny saver. It was the penny saver.
Oxford, you go to some other graduate school of renown.
And also, go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, Larry, because the Dryer thing ends up being unfulfilled. Brandon wins the Dryer, and we don't see anything ever happen to that. So had you been there for season 8, what would you have done to stay consistent with that storyline?
Well, to stay consistent, I would have had him in a very advanced college program as partly, and then he'd also have another job, like interning with a congressman or whatever, something like that.
I think we would have loved to have seen that, But anyway, we can go into that forever. The other thing that's happening here, which we're going to launch into, is this thing with Colin. Colin is going to be. He's being auctioned, because the other part of this is that they're using this. Kelly is using this same night, this big fantasy night at the casino, and all of this for Kelly's thing. So now they have this big auction, and Valerie and Kelly get into a fight in the auction for Colin.
Well, who's going to paint their portrait?
Yeah. Or whose portrait is he going to paint?
Yeah, he's
Yes.
got yeah, exactly, which means they'll be sitting with him. And it's kind of fun because we get to anytime we can kind of poke those two together, it's kind of good. It keeps it going. And yeah, I mean, again, it's a useful triangle. Again,
It's a really awesome triangle. This is a very underrated episode. The stuff that's going on with Valerie, because you can't be upset that Valerie's bidding so high, right? There's the part of you that's got to be excited, like, oh my God, we're going to be making more money for the charity. But also you're bidding for Colin. You know what I mean?
Right. And then David and Valerie have just kind of started their relationship. That's correct, right? Sherry?
Yeah, and it's a few episodes prior.
Yeah, since few episodes back. So that's the other thing with the risk for her. Then and David's he's kind of wondering what's going on. What she said so with Colin, but that's good. I'm just trying to get the other things in this episode that I kind of stood out for me.
Let's just stay here for a second because I had two notes. One, first of all, I love that you had the real life artist on.
Peter Tiegler. Yeah,
Peter Tiegler.
I was hoping you would discuss this portrait, but you didn't. But I would have loved to know. Did he draw Tiffany from a picture, that he replicated, or did she sit for him? I think that would have been really interesting. But so what Valerie eventually claims is that she wasn't bidding on the portrait to have alone time with Colin. It was really supposed to be David's Christmas gift and that she was doing it all for him. Are you buying that?
I don't buy that.
Yeah. But I like the fact she has a backup plan.
She has an alibi, basically.
Yeah, she has. Yeah, I think that's good. Does she ever give it to David?
We see Colin create it.
Yeah, I remember that.
Then he creates the mural, right?
No, this is not the mural. This is a portrait.
Yeah.
He does do the mural at some point as well.
Oh, the mural, yeah, that's later.
So the work leads to this picture leads to more work, right?
Right. Well, we're going to hook him on cocaine pretty quickly now. In the next episode, I think. I noticed something else that this episode came 2 weeks after the one before, which didn't usually happen, but we actually skipped a week here. Right after Sweeps November, we don't ever.
How did this episode do? Do we know what the rating of this episode was?
I would think that it would be just lower. Just probably wouldn't have been. The Fox guys couldn't promote someone dying or something else, and
it felt like a little bit of a filler episode between Thanksgiving and Christmas.
Yes.
Christmas was the very next week. Just one question I forgot to ask during the Brandon discussion. And maybe Pete will have insight on this from a production standpoint. All those shots of the dice throwing, how do you ensure the dice are going to land on the numbers you need?
It's a great question.
How many times are you throwing that?
Well, I mean, you're not doing it with the main company, probably. You're probably doing that in a B-roll.
Because they're insets.
So they probably, it's an insert crew. Just probably having to go through it, just having to get it right. Just like when people shoot, when Chris Williams shoots baskets. And can't shoot,
right? What you told us.
Continue to shoot till he hits one.
Sorry, Chris. Also,
come on the show.
By the way, how incredible Susan Keats looks in this episode. I know we talk about that every once in a while. She just is so stunning in this because she's wearing that dress and she's just like she's in this casino and she tries to talk sense into Brandon, but he will just not listen. She
has her hair back in those scenes, but she doesn't often do.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. Larry, do you have an opinion about?
Like Jason? Some of the stuff there where he really is like sweating. Like, hey, you're sweating. It's hot in here. No, I mean, like you really kind of play up that that addiction thing pretty well with him. I thought I was very he really committed himself to it, and it's a credit to the director for getting that out of him.
Yes, I was going to ask you about James Fargo, and did he ever do any more 90210?
I think so.
He did one episode.
Were you Larry? Were you basically at this point getting ready for the Christmas episode, which would have like
I said, this probably was the last double up of the season. I suspect when we shot this, so we were already we were probably already shooting this Christmas episode at the same time. And that one is which Angels We Have Heard on High. That's
which we have the outtakes for,
or I wrote that one too, or at least Phil and I wrote that. Maybe I think so. That was a pretty good one. Yeah, we bring Cindy home in that one, and Colin's hiding in the bathroom snorting coke. That's all beginning. Yeah, that's pretty cool.
Yeah. Anything else on your end, Shari?
A couple things. Speaking of Duke, we see him again in season 8, played by a different actor. Drives me bonkers. Fun fact: Tembi Locke, who plays Luke, you mentioned how she went on who plays Lisa, you mentioned how she went on to this career. She actually co-starred with Luke in the short-lived series Windfall.
Oh, that's right.
Oh, wow.
Which is
Which was
about
also
series, too.
executive produced and created by Laurie McCarthy, who was a writer on our staff this season.
Oh, I didn't know that. I mean, I have to tell you, I thought that show was really, really well done. I love that show. You know, did you watch that, Shari?
I remember the promos, and
I
I think the premise is really clever. Yeah,
and Luke is so good in everything he does. So
everything. Oh,
yeah.
Yes. The episode I really want to see you guys do, and I think you've mentioned it in the past as a possibility for this season, is Speechless. The framework that the girls end up in this convent and they can't talk, so we're all hearing their inner dialogue, and all of that had to be recorded through ADR, and that's just so fascinating. And it's actually juicy. This is when we find out about Ray and Valerie sleeping together and Donna's reaction and everything. I really hope you dive into that.
I do want to.
Also, we should not forget that the other story, the other main story, was Steve renting the Walsh house out for a porno.
Yes.
And there's also a Dylan and Tony component as well.
Yes, yeah.
We do have to cover this. I would love it to do it with Tori minimally. You know what I mean?
Well,
and then
Kathleen would be good.
Tori and Kathleen would be great. Tori and Jenny would be great. You know what I mean?
I have to ask Professor Weiss, have you watched the Roku channel Swimming with Sharks series that Kathleen?
I haven't. I don't have Roku.
I highly recommend it. It is fantastic. I totally am impressed with what she did with this thing.
Well, I've been gathering a lot of articles.
Of course, she can't top it now. She has to create something alternate, but it's terrific. It really is. And the girl in it stars the girl from Mad Men, the young.
She's so great.
She's really good, and the cast is good. Donald Sutherland's in it, and
Donald Sutherland is
Kathleen
is so good. Donald Sutherland in this thing, you know what I mean? He's just so.
There are sex scenes in here that I have never imagined. And you know
Noted.
me. And you know me. I mean, okay, so this is big praise. Okay.
No,
it's inspiration for the next book.
Yes, my book is out now. You actually can get it on Kindle. The new book on Kindle today. I think today.
And with that in mind, everything's right in it now, right? The words are correct.
Yes, I finally got the Amazon. Amazon doesn't have the paper book yet for the price that I want because they just have the secondary sellers. But the Kindle version is available for under $5. I would just grab it and read it. I just love this book, Road to Shambhala. It's the final. It completes the Max Dean trilogy. Pete has never read one book, so it's.
I'm excited to dive in.
I mean,
Larry, I do want to say you sent me a message to send to Kathleen about how much you loved it, and then she did say to me to tell you that she thought that you were one of the people that really got her and got the Claire vibe, and I thought that was a really nice. It was a really nice thing that you both had that little moment.
That. Yeah. I could do it directly, but I just kind of thought, let it go through you.
Yeah. Well, I
don't want to talk about. Yeah, she does a great job, and she's in it too. She's quite good in it.
Oh, you mean in this Swimming with Sharks?
She's in Swimming with Sharks.
She is. Yeah.
I mean, she's kind of a small part, but it runs through.
Oh, I think it's a critical part too, and but just that she has always told me that you were someone that was really always getting.
I put the handcuffs on her,
and I thank you for that. So, yeah. Okay, this has been a great episode. I do want to cover Speechless. Shari, anything else that you want to bring to the table here?
No, just thanks for having me back on. I really appreciate it.
Great to hear you.
No, it's great to have you.
And thanks for challenging on the white savior stuff, which is we didn't even have that word then, but
and so it makes me curious. What would you do differently today, if anything?
I don't know. I thought because it was even handed. I thought in a way, they both saved each other. I thought that
the Lisa character represented that point of view. She pushed back on Donna and said, we don't need Saint Donna. Coming into this family's life. So you did represent that viewpoint.
And it's amazing we had that oversight that, because it wasn't particularly enlightened time, particularly, where it would have stood out, obviously. But no, I thought because everyone was helping everyone there in a way. And that was good stuff. But I thought also, because we used the whole idea of the court a little bit too, like people in the court, the princesses help each other. She's covering for Lisa at the store, and it just seemed very organic in a certain way. and having Joe there and worrying about her. And I thought we got full marks on that from a show that again was so hodgepodge when we put it together. Literally, it was like a jigsaw puzzle. People just, you write a couple of beats here, I'm gonna meet back here in an hour, and we got to just start putting it together and just run it through.
Well, to your credit, you wouldn't know that watching it if had
No,
you not
I
seen,
know. That's why I was
multiple
amazed.
names and seen
I was
us.
afraid to watch it, frankly, Shari, because it just one that kind of we felt got away. It just kind of fell between the two bigger right after sweeps. There was and again it was double odds. We probably were concentrating on the other episode because James Fargo was not a go-to director for us.
He only did one other. So
Yeah.
But what was the other episode?
I'll tell you in 1 second, but it was this season as well.
Oh, this season as well? Okay.
Yeah.
And I do know people love Larry when you watch.
I think it was a snow one. Like it was like all this and Married too, maybe.
Yes, it was.
Yes.
That is it. Yeah.
Another forgettable episode. Sorry.
All right, this has been great, guys. We will be back next week. I don't know with what. I have no idea. I think we had something in mind, but I totally forgot what it was.
We have to get Jason, dear Jason Wallace, a date. We have to give him a couple of dates and let him pick one. But yes, we really want him on. He says he's going to go on. We wish him the best. He's a good guy.
Yeah, we love Jason
Not
Wallace.
a hater. Not a hater.
He's not a hater. Well, but he
I waited him. That's how we got him.
All right. So anyway, this was great. Good seeing you, Shari. Thank you so much.
Wow.
Good to see you, Shari. Best to you.
Be back next week with more
Jesters.
Beverly Hills 90210 show.
Yes. Bye-bye.